Welcome to the Tectonic Takes podcast. We are recording on Sunday, February 18th, which means the MLS season is about to begin in 3 days' time for Real Salt Lake and Inter Miami, and this coming weekend for everyone else, pretty much. With me today, your normal co-hosts, Abram, along with myself, Ivan, and our special guest from the Third Degree podcast, Buzz. Buzz, how are you doing today?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are y'all today?
Doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Right. So we really appreciate that you made the time for us. Obviously, our first fixture for this season will be FC Dallas hosting the San Jose Earthquakes. So we thought that would be a great way to kick off the 2024 season and our podcast coverage of it with someone who knows this club so well. So just would like you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your podcast and your connection to FC Dallas.
Okay. Well, I started the thirddegree.net, which is our website. We started covering FC Dallas at the end of the 1997 season. So our first season was of actual coverage of games was in 1998. So we're going into our 27th season covering this franchise. I happen to work in a business where I don't have a 9-to-5 sort of desk job. So I've been going to training about once a week for 27 years. I always know all the coaches and players, and we cover FC Dallas like professionals because I am in a media business, and everybody else that works on our podcast, which has been going around 6 years now. We're in our sixth season of a podcast, and everyone on that podcast is either a professional in radio or in marketing and has worked for soccer teams or covers sports for a living. So we operate this thing as professional media people, and we've been credentialed since 1997. And everyone that works for me operates as if they're a beat writer and covers the team in a professional capacity. I think we cover the team better than people that are professionals, particularly in a local sense. We only cover one team. We just cover FC Dallas, but we cover it top to bottom, all the way down the academy, every team they do, all the sub teams and everything. So that's our focus. We do splash down into professional soccer in Dallas, the other tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, down to the academy players coming through with the pathway to the professionals. And we've been around for quite a long time, and I don't think there's anyone similar close to us in terms of longevity.
Absolutely not. When it comes to longevity, there's very few publications, especially in Major League Soccer, which is it started playing in 1996, so you can't really get much further than that, and you're pretty much there from the beginning. So it's been
Is he
incredible.
frozen for you too?
Yep.
You froze.
Oh yeah, it just froze for a little bit. My bad. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. You were saying
perfect.
that in MLS there's not many.
Yeah.
podcasts
So
that have gone on that long.
exactly. So longevity, absolutely. And I'm just in awe of how much work y'all put into the coverage. And it's just been incredible. And we are humbled that we get a chance to talk to you and all the people across Major League Soccer that have done the work that it takes to cover the league is really humbling.
Yeah, I tend to make fun of some of the younger players that we've been doing this longer than they've been alive. It's getting close to where there's only a few players that have even been alive as long as we've been doing it. But it means we have a deep understanding of the league and the way it functions in its history, and that's nice to be able to bring that to the table.
Absolutely. Really appreciate all that background and just understanding like what thirddegree.net is about and then the podcast and how ingrained you are into the community of Dallas. It's just nothing but respect there. And to commemorate this match coming up between FC Dallas and San Jose Earthquakes, we're going to have both sides answer a series of questions ahead of today's game. And Abram and Buzz will be up first. The first question is, summarize your thoughts on the 2023 season and in what ways your club improved and or needs to improve still. And Buzz will hand it over to you.
Well, in 2023, FC Dallas didn't really improve. They chose a stand pat strategy going into the season, and then they suffered a whole bunch of injuries, and that meant they went backwards. Statistically speaking, the defense was just as good as the year before. They have one of the more outstanding defenses in the Western Conference. But offense was a big problem spot. They had one of the worst offenses. So that was an area of big need going into this winter. They started to address some of those needs with a couple of midseason signings last summer that were helpful, but they went into the winter having basically dropped back from 4th to 7th in the standings, going the wrong way. And then so they went into the winter knowing they needed to overhaul the offense. And when we get to talking about what happened this winter, you'll see that they've done a long way towards doing that, potentially. And we'll see how it goes. So that's the big area of focus, was making the offense better coming into this winter.
All right. And then Abram, now summarize the 2023 Earthquake season.
I mean, it was a mixed bag, for a lot of it. The very beginning, I was super excited to see Luchi ball. I'm sure Buzz is very familiar with Luchi and his ways of playing. And I was excited at first. It was really beautiful to watch. We were getting a lot of acclaim from different pundits about our style of play and how San Jose is the team to look out for. And that's something that you don't usually hear from San Jose since 2012. So it started off on a great note, even though we did lose that first game against Atlanta. I will always have flashbacks / nightmares to that day. Every time I hear the name Thiago Almada, I flinch a little bit. But yeah, later in the season, things started to go more poorly. Our lack of depth really showed. I think that Luchi, my theory is that he kind of like didn't feel strong enough to push for the win in a lot of the games where we went for a draw. And I mean, he has a better outlook of the team than I do, so maybe he's justified in that. But I think that we brought in a lot of key pieces that will very much improve, not just maintain the defensive structure, but also improve the attacking output. Because that was a big problem last season, that our front line wasn't really firing on all cylinders. There was a few pieces that were just kind of misfiring, and we were having trouble with that.
Right. So overall, could have been better for both clubs in 2023, which means a fresh set of expectations going into 2024. What are FC Dallas's expectations for this campaign?
Well, our expectation is that we would see the same defensive consistency and the same stalwart defensive team as we have the last 2 seasons. There's no reason to expect that to change. The question is going to be the offense, and they attempted to overhaul the roster in 2 ways. One is to bring in some offensive firepower, and when we get to the section about transfers, we'll talk about how that worked. And the second was they attempted to bring in more depth in the mid to the bottom tier of the roster, because they want to be able to survive an injury load like they had last season, which was a ridiculous one. He shouldn't get that level again. But also with the additional load of things like the Leagues Cup and things like the Open Cup, which hopefully we're going to see all the teams stay in. They wanted to create more padding of being able to rotate guys in and out and not have these drop-offs. So those were the 2 goals going into the winter to go towards this season. On paper, we really like the way both of those things shaped up and how they've improved both those areas. Of course, you have to actually play the games and find out if the offensive pieces you went and got really do work like you think they're going to. But the expectation is that Dallas should improve back into the, if not the top of the Western Conference, but back into the top 5-6 teams in that conversation in the Western Conference.
Right, and I think that is a fair expectation for a club that's always been in the playoff mix for the last decade or so. And that's where we bring the San Jose Earthquakes expectations. We're trying to get to that consistency. And while 5 to 6 would be great, I think 7 or 8 is more what we're hoping for in terms of the final finish. But I think the most important thing is that the San Jose Earthquakes, simply put, haven't been going to playoffs in back-to-back seasons too many times as of late. And that's the first step before you start thinking about winning a playoff match and making a deep playoff run. I think just getting to the playoffs, especially when right now it's 18 teams out of 29 get a play-in bid, I think that's the bare minimum. And we do have to acknowledge and respect the improvements made in a really tough Western Conference, and know that just because the San Jose Earthquakes improved doesn't mean FC Dallas haven't improved, Austin haven't improved, everyone else has improved in some ways. Even the Colorado Rapids have brought in a lot of great players. So we can't just assume that the teams below us are going to stay below us. So it's going to be really tough. But I think that the San Jose Earthquakes are building in the right direction, and we just have to see how that transpires. For the transfer business in this offseason, it hasn't just been a typical players coming in and out for FC Dallas, and we'll let you talk a bit more about this, but also a burgeoning partnership with SL Benfica.
Yeah, the important thing to understand about Dallas is that this twofold idea of how they went into their business this year. They brought in some younger pieces, some interesting pieces, things like a new U22 initiative player, things like a nice draft pick, things like a young 20-year-old Ecuadorian, things that are for that middle to bottom part of the roster that we talked about. But then something very significant and massive change, and this is a complete bellwether change for this club. For the first time in their history, the club has gone out and spent owner money to make a transfer, and a significant transfer. The previous record was Alan Velasco, but that used Ricardo Pepi money. They brought in 18, 20 million, and they spent half of it on Alan Velasco. Well, that money is all gone. It's been used on other players and other things, and for a massive improvement in the facility, in the club across the board. So now they've taken what clearly from all of our sources and from all of the information we possess, this is the Hunts reaching into their pocket and spending money. And they've just spent 10 million, maybe going up to highest $13 million on a striker on a 9. That's a significant different operation from an ownership group that has always spent money, but they've always spent on infrastructure and development and things that help the long-term longevity of the club. Up until now, it was get money in to buy somebody. This is the first time it's been like, okay, here's $10 million. Go get the guy we really need. So that's a different era for the Hunts. And obviously we have to see how that player works. He is from Benfica. He was not one of their first 2 choice strikers. He was but a really key player off the bench, which is, to be fair, the price range for a player that would come to Major League Soccer. In the past, a player like this might have jumped to become a starter at maybe another Portuguese club or a mid-tier or lower-tier Spanish club, something like that. And this time he's chose to come to FC Dallas. That's kind of exciting. We later learned, and I don't know that they're related, but perhaps they are, that Dallas did a deal with Benfica for academy and coach development. Now these deals it's similar to the Bayern deal, and it's similar to the deal where they had Athletic Paranaense in Brazil and the deal they had with Tigres. These are not about first team players. This is about kids going over for tours or camps. It's about coaches going over and exchanging ideas. Benfica has an amazing academy. So does FC Dallas. Not that they're the only ones in MLS, but FC Dallas is a great academy. So that exchange of ideas is new, but that's the kind of thing that FC Dallas has done before. The bellwether is this Hunt willingness to spend is, for us here, is an alarm bell that we're in a different era. And of course we have to see how he works out, but it's a very exciting time to have them go after, identify a very key, significant single player and do something with it and go spend money to get that guy. That's new.
Yeah, and for more information on that, there's about a 25-minute episode on the Third Degree podcast that goes into this in more detail, and it's just fascinating seeing all the breakdown, and I highly recommend it for those of you that are interested in more about that. And that's a very important distinction made, that Peter Musa is a nice addition, and he is a Benfica player, and that's something that's going to immediately benefit FC Dallas. Doesn't necessarily mean that any sort of bench player from Benfica is going to come to FC Dallas, and doesn't mean FC Dallas players are going to go to Benfica. There's a lot more to it than that, and a lot more organizational long-term building that should be mutually beneficial. So thank you for that explanation. So Musa obviously is a very exciting player. Abram, did you have a chance to look into some of the Dallas incomings or outgoings, or do you have any questions about their business?
Well, I can't say I looked into the analytics of it or done any meaningful research, but I do know that Peter Musa did eliminate my Venezia team in FIFA career mode by scoring a hat trick, and I'm very upset about that. And I've always remembered, like, dang, that guy is a beast. So when he got announced as a new Dallas player, I was like, God dang it, he's following me. he's coming after me. No, and I never enjoy it when Dallas gets a really strong player, because they always seem to come up big against us. Like Velasco had some amazing performances against us, and that's never fun to watch. It's been some of my most painful moments as a Quakes fan have been playing against FC Dallas. And no disrespect to you, Buzz, but it sucks. It sucks to watch our team get dismantled like that sometimes.
Well, you're in luck, because he got married apparently yesterday, and he doesn't have his P1 visa yet. So he's not even in country. So you're not going to see him this weekend. But,
oh, wow.
Yeah. You'll probably, we'll talk later about who's going to play, but the chances that it's Peter Musa are like 0.0001%. There's no way he's getting a visa here in time when he got married. I think it was yesterday.
Well, that's a
Awesome.
very good reason to miss a match. Usually, the
Yeah,
reasons to
fair.
miss a match are bad reasons. So, fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
Congratulations to him.
yeah.
And Abram, now you have examined a lot more closely the San Jose Earthquakes transfer window. So, what are some of the big additions and subtractions for the club?
I mean, you have to say Amal Pellegrino is a huge addition to the club. And I mean, there is a lot of doubt about his age. You don't see a lot of 33-year-olds, do it in this league on the wing, especially. But we've had Chase Salinas, we've had Chris Wondolowski, we've had older players who have shown that they have worth in this league. I don't think Amal Pellegrino is going to be any different. I think that he's done it in a league that's like I would say similar. I think MLS is more physical, but I think Pellegrino has that class and skill and just amazing technique that you hate to play against as a physical player. It's just because it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter how hard you run. He's going to do something to outdo you, just with his mastery of the ball. And I think Victor Costa is going to be a very big addition. I love Paul Marie, but Victor Costa covers a lot of ground on that left side. He's going to do the running for Pellegrino. Is going to be providing the ball to him, as well as to Abobasi, to Espinosa on the other side. He's going to be making those runs and making those crosses. And then Wilson, I believe, made 5.6 something long balls per game. That's a lot of long balls per game. And Rodriguez likes to do long balls as well. So one thing Luchi talked about was getting the ball from one side of the field to the other much quicker. I think Wilson is going to be a big key to making that happen more often, and hopefully it'll you know result in more goals for us.
Right. And would it be fair to say, Abram, that this is the busiest Quakes window that we've covered in the last few years, right?
I haven't been doing this very long, Evan. You guys brought me on like a year or two ago. This is unprecedented territory. We did like 4 signings in 3 days, I believe, in terms of when they got announced. And I'm hearing whispers that there's more on the way, that we want to bring in a DP level cam, or a center attacking mid for those who don't play FIFA religiously like me. Um, but if we got that, I think that we are in contention for the upper half of this table, because that's a very strong piece for any team. But I also think that this team in particular could really use that kind of creativity right behind Abobasi, right behind the forward line, and provide more options, more creative chances. I think that that's kind of the missing piece that we really need. So I'm glad to hear that Luchi told us that they're looking into that spot in particular.
And that spot, as it stands right now, would be somewhere where there could be a vacuum of minutes that Nico Shakiris could benefit from, but that would be asking a lot for a young player to play in and out for 34 games. So you still want to have that more established DP level presence that Shakiris could learn from and play alongside at times, sub in for, and that could be beneficial for all parties involved. And of course, the biggest name leaving the Quakes was Cade Cowell. And this is a name that's familiar to many MLS fans, not just Quakes fans. So when Cade Cowell finally did leave for Chivas after a bit of a lengthy saga from last summer, Buzz, what were your thoughts on that move for Cade Cowell leaving to Chivas?
I think it's good for him. As a San Jose fan, I would not be too worried about it. He's a chaos maker. He wrecks opposition team formations and tactics, but he also wrecks his own team's formation and tactics. That can be good. That can be talismanic, but it can also hurt you if you're trying to play a specific way in a specific system. If you do want to play Luchi ball, I'm not sure he's the Luchi ball guy. I mean, you guys have a really nice, the moves that you have on paper this winter look really good. And I really love your midfield combo. I like Jackson Ewell. And obviously Carlos Grezzo is the second best six we've ever had here in Dallas. I was pissed when he came back to us and didn't come to Dallas, because they needed a six desperately at the time. I was really mad he didn't come back to here, because he's a phenomenal player. And I'm not sure that, Cade Cowell was going to start for your team. Looking at the MLS preview, looking at the bodies you have plugged into your front three, he was probably just going to be a bench player coming late in attack. So I think probably in a dollars to value league like MLS is, and for a team like San Jose who's trying to come from the create that squad depth, you need value pieces, not expensive, sexy but expensive pieces. You need good value pieces, and so I think probably for your club in the long run, you'll probably be better, even if it's not fun and you're not going to sell as many jerseys. Maybe I think it's a stable roster building move if you can use whatever money you were going to spend on him. If you can use it in a good fan, I mean that's in the end, right? You got to be able to scout and get players. If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what you do. But if you can do that, and Luchi does have a great eye for talent. Maybe not center backs, but other than that, he does. He was influential in getting Ricardo Pepi into this team and here back in the day. So he's definitely a guy who can bring along young players if you can. And there should be enough talent in California. I think he would be able to do that. And capitalizing with the Cape Cal sale is actually how you do that. It's how you build a better squad.
Right, and I think it was the right time for Cade to leave, and it was the right time for San Jose Earthquakes to cash in. Abram, you agree?
No, yeah, fully. I totally agree with everything Buzz said. He is a chaos maker, and I mean, I talked to Devin a few days ago. That episode's up now. It was best for him. It was a good time for him. $4 million is a lot. It's the highest transfer fee we've ever accepted. And then we have added incentives and also 20% future transfer fee. That's huge. That's a big chunk of that potential fee that if he were to move on from Chivas and go to a bigger club or even stay in Liga MX, whatever he wants to do, we get a percentage of that. So I'm definitely happy with that move, especially because he was kind of stagnating here. We hate to say it, but it's the truth. His numbers were starting to go down, which is the opposite of what you want to see from a young winger. And it was kind of really hurting our team. And Luchi really liked him. Luchi loved playing him, so it didn't matter who was on the bench waiting to go. It was always going to be Cade, which was frustrating at times. But and also, we got good things out of it until we didn't. So it is what it is.
Yeah, he's a very nice luxury player. If you have a good team and you need a guy who can be a difference maker and get you a goal when you need it, that's a really nice thing to add. But if you're trying to build a base team, I don't know that he would be part of that.
Right, and that's where the San Jose Earthquakes are still at. We can't really have passengers. We need everyone to be playing productively. That's going to be a regular starter for us. And that brings us to our next topic. What is your club's projected starting lineup to the best of your knowledge? So we could just contextualize it into like if our game was today and it will be in 6 days, what would your lineup look like for Dallas?
Well, Dallas this spring has surprisingly switched to a 3-4-3, and the front line is the key. The front three is 2 10s underneath a single high striker, hence the move to go get Musa, which helped move Jesus Ferreira back to more of a natural off striker 10 type role underneath. So if we were starting a full string team today, you would see Petar Musa, but he won't be here. So it'll probably be Logan Farrington, who's the draft pick, and you'll have Paul Arriola behind him as one of the 10s. And if Jesus Ferreira gets healthy, it'll be Jesus Ferreira. He's got a little bit of a abductor thing, I think it is, going on. So you might see Bernard Camungo or Sebastian Lletget instead, who are both dangerous players as well. And then the four across, the left wing back, Dante Celia, of all people, has apparently won the left back wing back job, which is a surprise. And then the right wing back job probably in the course of the season will be Imatu Amasi, but he's coming off of injury and Giovanni Jesus is out. So you're going to see, more than likely, you're going to see Herbert Indele, who's an Indiana draft pick last year out of IU. Is a very up and down kind of vertical sort of winger, but super raw. He's only played like 2 or 3 games before, so that's a really it essentially will be a rookie starting at right back probably on opening day. And then the two in the double pivot will be Asir Iarmendi, who's a 30-year-old Spanish guy they brought in from Valencia. He used to play for Real Madrid. He's got like 300 games in La Liga. He's an amazing Spanish central midfielder. Phenomenal player if you haven't seen him. And then it would be Paxton Pomykal, but Paxton also is banged up, so it'll probably be Liam Fraser, who's a Canadian 6. That'll probably be that combo with him and Iarmendi. And then 3 center backs are Sam Junka, Nkosi Tafari, and Sebastian Ibiaga. Ibiaga came from LAFC last year. Junka, they got from Houston last year as a free agent, but they picked him up. And then a goalie, Martin Paz, who's the Dutch keeper, and that'll be your starting day, 3-4-3.
The names that stand out for me, Martin Paz, the goalkeeper, I think he's one of the underrated keepers in the league. He's going to be very reliable, and I feel like he will be competing with Daniel for who's going to have the best save, and it's going to be a competition where they're each going to have some top 3 entries. I think it's going to be a fun game. and then Paul Areola, the Chula Vista native. I lived a couple years in San Diego, and one of my dad's good friends he lives in Chula Vista, and he's seen Paul Areola play a lot when he used to play at Tijuana. So he's a player that I enjoy watching. I also got to watch him live at the 2017 CONCACAF Gold Cup final that USA beat Jamaica in, and he is a hard worker. He gives you whatever you need. He's very adaptable. He's willing to give you what the team needs. I think that Areola, he is the type of veteran presence that he's not going to be needed to be carried by the younger players. He's going to guide them. He's going to help make the team better. So just an overall really balanced looking Dallas lineup. And you're going to be missing players for various reasons, but we're not sleeping on this team. There's some good players there. Abram, any thoughts? Any player stands out for you for the Dallas lineup?
Yeah, you were talking about Areola. I used to cover DC United when I first broke onto the scene as a writer. That was my first assignment, and I found him to be a fun player to watch because he seems so stressed. Like he's never like having a chill time. He's working his butt off the whole time, and he doesn't like have any like super impressive skills, but he's gonna figure it out. He's there to work hard and make sure that his team, figures it out and gets the most of that match. And he always just seems to pop up. He's very annoying for the any defense to play against. Ferreira is a very interesting player. He's injured, which is good for us. I'm hoping that we don't see too much of him. Maybe off the bench, but he's another player that I like to watch. Safari is a very good young center back that I find interesting. And you guys, I don't know if you guys still have him anymore, but I did want to ask about Justin Shea because I have a rare collectible card of his, but I haven't heard about him much since he went to Hoffenheim.
Yeah, Dallas sold him to like when he was at I think it was Hoffenheim. They loaned him to Westerlo, I think, which is in the Dutch league. So when he came back to Dallas, when his loan ended to Hoffenheim, he never even showed up back here. Dallas eventually just sold him back to Westerlo. So he hasn't been here in several years now. Even though he was here on paper, he hasn't been here. And I don't know what's going on with him in Westerlo because he's not playing there either now. So it's a total mystery to me what happened to him there. So
That's weird because he seemed like one of the next big things, on paper. Like he was 17, people were like touting him to be good. I don't know if he was like I don't know what you guys thought about him at Dallas, but from the outside in, he was pretty high rated.
Yeah, he went to Bayern Munich on one of those little, not loan stint, but like a 2 week sort of training stint, and then kind of had his head turned a little bit, and because they were like, we want him, and Dallas had regretted how cheaply they sold Chris Richards to Bayern, so they were like, well, here's the price, and Bayern was like, well, no, we're not paying that. So after that, Shea was like, well, I should be in Germany, and by the way, he's got family in Germany, and he had gone to Germany like every summer, and I think it was even Hoffenheim where he goes, and he speaks German. He can get an EU passport. So he's always expected himself to go to Germany and play in Germany, speaks German. So when he came back here after the Bayern thing, he just never really quite, I don't know what his expectation was, but he didn't quite really break through. He played a lot for North Texas, and he started getting action at either right back or sort of right center back in the back three with Luchi, but he wanted to go back to Germany the whole time. So that was when the loan ended up happening. And basically like once that happened, once he wanted to go and left, like his interest in me in Dallas was zero. So like he never wanted to come back and he didn't want to be here. And when, for example, he and Dante Sealy came back at the same time and Dante Sealy was excited to come back and embraced it. And now he looks like he got in a bunch at the end of last season. And now it looks like he's going to be the starting left wing back. Whereas Che was like, I'm not even coming back to the States. You can just figure it out. And so he clearly didn't want to be at Dallas anymore. And so if you don't want to be here, then we don't want you to be here. You got to buy in to be good in Major League Soccer. You got to work. And he wasn't interested in that here. So again, why he hasn't progressed against it. Like at Hoffenheim, he was hurt all the time. That's why it didn't work out there. He only played like a third of the games or something. So maybe he's hurt again. Yeah. I don't really know.
And then Yeah, last I see from Justin Shea here, he is currently contracted to Danish outfit Brøndby. He is on a loan spell to ADO Den Haag in the Netherlands. He made 16 appearances there, so
Thank you. I
probably
forgot it was Bromby they sold him to. I said Westerlo. That's my fault. That's where Brian Reynolds is. Is
yes,
Westerlo.
right.
Yeah, confusion.
It's all good. Yeah, a lot of Americans abroad these days. And you mentioned Dante Sealy. I feel like he could be very instrumental to the success in this fixture, and maybe for this season. I think that he could be kind of that X factor for FC Dallas.
Possible. When you play wing backs, it's in the name, wing and back. So you have to be able to get up and down the entire field, which is physically demanding. But you have to have offensive capability. You have to be able to run at people. You still want to have that front five attacking the half spaces, and the wing back has to occupy that wide spot. So you have to be able to dribble at people and get beyond people, and he can do that. So that position you can't really just slap a Marco Farfan out there who's a defensive first outside back and expect him to be that offensive threat you need. Whereas Dante Sealy can be. So we think that's happening. And somewhere along the way, he developed a free kick because he's scored multiple goals this spring off of free kicks, stunning free kicks. And he had another one against DC where it was going in. If the keeper hadn't tipped it over, it was going to go in. So I don't know where that came from because he never had that when he was in the academy. He found it somewhere when he was at PSV, I guess, because it showed up this spring. And we're kind of excited and crossing our fingers that maybe his breakthrough is coming, which is probably one of the future questions on your list. But it could be interesting to see.
Right. And then in the other half of the Luchi Gonzalez Bowl, if you want to call it, this is the lineup that he could be cooking up for Dallas. Daniel in net, Acapos, Rodriguez, Wilson, and Costa as the back line. Grezzo making a return to Dallas in CDM. Jackson Ewell captaining the side in midfield alongside potentially Nico Shakiris while that void is still there at center attacking midfield. And then our front three of Christian Espinoza, Jeremy Abobasi, and Amal Pellegrino. So, Abram, how do you feel like this starting 11 could operate?
First of all, I want to apologize if you hear the lawnmower outside. I'm not going to go yell at that guy in the middle of the podcast, even though I'd like to. I think that is a strong lineup. I don't know about Shakiris's availability. He did have an injury for most of preseason, which is why we didn't see too much of him. So I'm kind of hesitant to say that he would start. Luchi does like him, and I think that we will see him start a few times this season. But that injury makes things kind of dicey. But let's say he was playing. I think that team has enough to make some trouble for that Dallas side. I think that because of the way Nico likes to work, he's an 8, but he has a skill of a 10, so he kind of he goes up and down and runs his butt off, but that makes him get really tired, unfortunately. So I think that we'd see maybe Tommy come in, maybe what's his name, the new signing from New York, Morales. So we might see Morales come in and then have a double pivot with Grezzo and Morales, and maybe Jackson, not as a 10, but 10 to 8, kind of hybrid.
Free eight.
A free eight, yes.
3 8.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
So that could be interesting. It really depends, I think, on how the midfield clicks. I think that's going to be a really big key point in this match.
Yeah, I think Morales would probably be the safer bet if Shakiris isn't ready to go, and that's why Morales is here. Not to be an everyday starter, but because he has so much experience in the league, coming from New York City FC, but he can be a little bit versatile and he can mold into different formations. And as for Jackson Ewell, much rather him be a free 8 than a center back. So, yeah, we'll gladly have him play that free 8 role if he needs to. Any players in particular stand out for this possible 11 for you, Buzz?
Well, other than Grezzo, who I already mentioned, I do actually like Jackson Ewell. Abobasi, to me, is a very dangerous player. He may be hard to coach because he seems to get moved on relatively quickly, but he's a super dangerous asset. And Dallas has occasionally been exploited when they played a Black 4. They occasionally saw people try to exploit them with pace between the center back and the outside back. trying to use, particularly in the past, the left center back has not been very pacey. And so they would go at that hole, and he can be really effective against a team like Dallas, who didn't necessarily at the time last season have that pace factor. But in the end, that's part of why they've gone to three at the back now, because when you go three at the back, the wing backs come back, and then it actually tightens the space between the center backs. So partially that's to counter guys like Abobasi and the counter these teams that caused them trouble last season occasionally with pace at those gaps, whether it be like when they're in a mid block and you're countering them or you're trying to break them down. Dallas does tend to go into a low block once they take a lead, or mid to a low block, but being at home, they're going to be much less likely to do that. They're going to want to play and try and control the game. Even if they won't control possession, they'll control the game. And last time San Jose came in here, San Jose Luchi fielded a flat 4-4-2, which was I had not seen him do before. And he really played a compact double line low block, and that causes Dallas fits. The last several years, even when Luchi was here, they've really, really struggled to break down a low block. So it'll be difficult if you guys do that again to see if Dallas can break that down. But honestly, that's the main. I worry a little bit about your center backs. I'm not super confident that that's very good, but Abobasi is the danger player for me in this particular team. If you can keep him from getting chances coming in on the keeper, whether it be breakaways or whether it be slicing runs, that's when you can really shut him down, because that's when he's most effective for me.
Right. And our center back partnership is yet to be tested, so that's going to be one thing I'll be keeping an eye on in this game. And with Rodriguez, we like him a lot. He's very versatile. He's very talented. But if he is a little bit focused on the offensive side of the game, which he does love, then there's always a chance that maybe get caught out. So we're going to see how Rodriguez's evolution continues in 2024. And another area I'm going to look at from the bench is, can we get more production off the bench this season? And that's where I think our rival turned ally Preston Judd is going to come in. We're hoping that he can contribute to that factor, and maybe Buddha takes a step up, our draft pick from last season. So a lot of exciting things for San Jose Quakes in their lineup, but still a lot of question marks. I think that'd be fair to say, Abram.
Yeah, no, for sure. This rebuild, as I like to call it, is far from complete. There's still a lot of holes, but we're trending in the right direction, which is what's important.
Yeah, I believe so too. Next, I'd like to ask you, Dallas's breakout player and/or comeback player. It could be due to injury or performances last season, or maybe a young player that's going to be getting a lot more minutes.
Well, it looks like it's going to be Dante Sealy, and certainly we hope it's going to be Dante Sealy, because that kid has been phenomenally talented for a long, long time. He was been in the U.S. national team program 15, 17, 20, even playing up. Like when he was 17, he would play up with the 20s. People have been expecting him to be great for a long, long time, and he never has really come through. He's always played at about an 80% effort level. The skill's always been there, but he never really knew what to do with it. He never really knew how to go at people. He had the skill to go at people, but not the knowledge of like, okay, I just beat that guy. Now what do I do? I just go with the next guy, I guess. And when you particularly for a team like Dallas, which is coached by a guy who believes in work rate and tenacity and toughness, if you're only going to play at 80% all the time, you're not going to see the field very much. Well, this spring, the games we've seen, we haven't seen all of them because some of them have been blacked out, but the ones we've seen, he's getting much closer to at least 100% effort for big chunks, if not even like a whole half of it. And if he can do that and not regress back to this 80% effort guy, he's going to be phenomenal, because you have to have that attacking component from that wing back. If he can deliver that, that'll make the Dallas attack really light up, because that will then create space. Because if those outside guys bring something to the table, then all of a sudden Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, and Petter Musa are going to have a field day when the backs are distracted by the opposition backs are distracted by these wings coming at you. So if Dante Sealy can have, in a space of 2 games, he had 4 goals and 2 assists, and 2 of the goals were on free kicks at the end of the Spain trip they just had. So if he can be anywhere close to that effective, 5-6 goals, 5-6 assists, that'll be enough to have teams sit back as he attacks them and keep them on their heels, and that'll really help Dallas's offense be effective. And then if it's not him, maybe Logan Farrington, who was the 3rd overall pick. The club is just losing their mind about how good they think that kid's going to be, and he'll need to spell Petter Musa at the high 9 for a bit at certain stretches. And if that guy has the potential that we think that he does, the club thinks he does, you might see what would be in the neighborhood of a breakout season too, of like 5, 6, 7, 8 goals perhaps. And keeping in mind, there have been times in the past where 8 goals has led this team in scoring. So, that's a really remarkable season for a young player if you can get that amount of total, assuming that Jesus Ferreira and Petar Musa are going to be your main. You wouldn't call either one of those guys a comeback or a breakout if they have 15 to 18 goals each. That's what you would want to have happen.
We have a lot of respect for the number 8 at the Sounds Earthquakes. So, 8 goals is nothing to sniff at.
Yeah.
Abram, who do you think would be the breakout or comeback player for the Earthquakes?
So I don't know, Ivan, if you saw Hameen's survey, but there was a lot of mixed responses. Many people said Abobasi because they expect him to be back at that level where he was scoring 17 goals a season as opposed to 10. I think 10 is nothing to scoff at. You guys were happy with 8. 10's too better than that. And double digits, if he... our friend Weston brought up this point. If he had scored the penalties instead of Espinosa, he would be at 13. And we said Espinosa is having an amazing season at 13 goals, right? So it's just perspective. And and another thing to look at is that Cade wasn't giving him a lot of service from that left side. He's left-footed. That's where he wants the ball coming to him from. So I'm sorry, you asked me a different question, and I'm here defending Bobasi.
No, that's applicable. That's applicable because it's a comeback / breakout in that category.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I think Bobasi is going to have a better season, but I don't think he should be considered the comeback guy. I think that Nico could break out, especially if he gets fit and we don't have a 10. I think that Paul Marie could really do a big chunk of damage on that left side or the right side, depending on how our starters perform. So there's a few guys who are like pushing, but I think that Oscar Verhoeven is a guy who I think that might be coming off the bench this season, and he might be someone who breaks out, and people aren't ready for him. He's a very bright talent that I don't think people know about or have seen play in the academy and Quakes too. He's a very strong player with a lot of heart. That's something I think a lot of people will be excited to see him do. Is he's so aggressive. He's like a Carlos Puyol at right back, but he has pace and he has a really good eye to make an incisive pass, which you don't normally see from right backs. So he has a lot of talent, and he's a guy that we're very lucky to have in our academy coming through. So definitely watch out for him.
Yeah, and when it comes to Quakes 2 knowledge, you're at the top, Abram, so I really trust you when it comes to breakout players that have come through that setup. And now let's talk a little bit about rivals. So with Dallas comes the Texas Cup. Which of the two rivals do you think is Dallas's bigger foe right now? Would you say Houston or Austin?
Yeah, Houston. Yeah, Houston. It's all about Houston and the toilet bowl that Houston is. Nobody cares about Austin. Austin is the annoying 6-year-old nephew that started showing up at Christmas when your crazy uncle Precourt married his third wife. And this kid runs around sitting on the dog head farting and going, all right, all right, all right. Nobody cares about Austin. It's all about Houston. Now, listen, I will give Austin credit. They have come into Texas and show that if you have a good venue, good game, atmosphere, good marketing, a good brand, and you get out there in the community, they've shown you can draw in Texas. They woke up FC Dallas ownership and the Dynamo ownership. Both those teams have responded from ownership level down and have made moves that are going to increase in the buys and stands. Dallas averaged like 18,000, 19,000 last year. It'll be close to a sellout all year long. Houston's making strides. So full credit to Austin on that front. Nobody here gives a crap about Austin on the field. It's all about the Houston Dynamo and the 2 championships they were gifted right out of the gate. That's where the hatred is. That's the Texas Derby. Austin is not, it's just some annoying brat that showed up.
Abram, we're not happy about those Houston Dynamo championships either, right?
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't exist as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they were born on third base, right? The ball was already going over the fence when they got that team. It's like, here's 2 championships.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Exactly. That's something that we can relate on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. The way you described Austin, I wish that was the perception that LAFC got, because that is
Yeah.
also very applicable to them. The California Classico is still one of the biggest rivalries in Major League Soccer history. It's very storied.
Yeah.
There's a lot of storylines and dramatic moments, from David Beckham and Q in the ESPN Sports Center sign to Lennon Judas Donovan. Like, there's a lot still there with Quakes and Galaxy, and we're going to get a very early
Yeah.
preview of that in this week 2 matchup between the Quakes and Galaxy. That's going to be a lot of fun there. So that answers the question for it's still the Galaxy for us. It still remains to be seen what kind of rivalry we have for LAFC. It might take a little bit of time to have more of an equal triangle sort of thing, like with Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver, although that's not necessarily an equal triangle either, because Portland and Seattle are the main rivalry in that trio as well. But also, speaking of Seattle, we can't forget about the Heritage Cup between San Jose Earthquakes and Seattle Sounders. So that is still something that we look forward to on the rivalry front. And these are the legit rivalries. They've come up organically. They've taken a lot of years to create, a lot of battles. Of course, geography plays a key part of it. And of course, it helps when you add a cute name like El Trafico to it. But I think MLS tries very hard with the branding of the rivalry. The only league that I think tries harder to make these inauthentic rivalries rivalry is the NBA. At least MLS still has more authentic rivalries, perhaps this day and age, than the NBA does. If their rivalry week was anything to show for, from a Dallas perspective, Mavs versus Hawks, for example, Luka versus Trey, that's a very big stretch, right?
Can I just say that is a tectonic take?
Yeah, that is a tectonic take. We gotta have at least one of those per podcast. That's the name of the podcast. So always a fun storyline there with rivalries. You alluded to this earlier. Where do you expect Dallas to finish in the regular season? So if you had to pick a place.
Yeah, well, barring some catastrophic overloads of injuries or something like that, I don't think Dallas is yet in that top 2 elite category. But middle pack Western playoffs, 3rd to 5th is where they should be. The number one question is: are we expecting the team to have the same deficient resiliency? If they do that, they'll make the playoffs, which they've only missed like 8 times in 29 years. This is their 29th season. They'll have only missed 8 times. They're consistently good. They're never great, other than maybe that 2-year run with Oscar Pereja in 16-ish, not 2016 when they did the double. But if they can bump that offense from where it was last time, which was near the bottom, to mid-table on the West, which is what we expect, that's why you're like 3 to 5th. If they can turn it into an elite offense, then you can have different conversations. And in the end, you're going to have to be able to, if you want to do anything, you have to be able to get ahead of teams like Seattle, because they've won once in Seattle in their entire history, once or twice in Portland, their entire history. Like, you have to get home games against those teams if you're going to advance in MLS Cup. So the short answer is 3rd to 5th or 6th in the West, in that mix among the better teams, maybe not top 2, not that good.
Would it be fair to say that top 2 right now is still like LAFC and St. Louis, or
Seattle?
Seattle, yeah.
Seattle.
St. Louis maybe just a tick off, yeah.
I'm not a believer in St. Louis. I wasn't a believer in them last year. I know their record is good, but they caught a lot of people napping. They play very direct, and they play very much and if they can stay injury-free, which they mostly did last year, then they're pretty good. I think they're going to regress this year and slide back to that middle pack. They're good, but they're 3 to 5th also. It's, for me, LAFC did a lot of really great moves. They're reloading, but they had a really great squad, and they got really great pieces. We need to see how it gels. But they should be 1 and 2. Seattle is the best run organization in MLS. They have an amazing coach. Losing Garth Lagerwey is a hit, but their coach is amazing. Everyone is on the same page. They've successfully transitioned from the previous generation to the next generation, and now they've moved out big salaries and have room to do things. Seattle has got an amazing home field advantage. That's the best run franchise in the Western Conference. So for me, Seattle and LAFC are the top 2. You have to, until you beat them, they're going to be up there. You have to successfully beat them all frequently.
That was in my mind. So I'd probably overrated a little bit St. Louis going into this season. But it's Sounders and LAFC. And then you could perhaps mention Real Salt Lake in there as well. But those are the big dogs in the Western Conference.
RSL is hard to know. They've done some weird things. They've had some pieces leave. for sure, Seattle, LAFC, and then you get into a group. Kansas
Yeah.
City came on at the end of last year. If they continue that going, you can't underestimate Peter Vermees. RSL could be in that conversation. Colorado's done some great things. I don't think they have the full squad roster that you need in order to really compete in the Western Conference. Seattle's in that conversation. Houston is in that conversation. They said they took a kick in the balls in the offseason with the pieces they lost, and they might lose Coca Carrasquilla too. So you have to like what LA's doing, but their defense is still a shambles. And so really that's about it, because Minnesota's trash. Austin is trash. Portland is collapsing rapidly. Vancouver, they let the best coach they had go. So it's like, it's hard to really know. You just have these bandwidths of teams. That middle, Dallas, Sporting, St. Louis, Houston, LA Galaxy, RSL, that group of 5 or 6 could be 2 points apart, like this last year, 2-3 points apart for like 6 teams. So where you end up is like flip a coin, whether you're second or sixth, but you're behind LA and Seattle for me.
Yeah, that's where I'm hoping to kind of be in that big group there somehow. Probably realistically in the back end of that group. I'm thinking 8th or 9th, but we could slip further. It's going to be really tough. Abram, where do you think the Quakes could finish?
I answered this in the bonus episode, but in case you didn't see that, I think 7th is a realistic place for us to be looking at. I know Dallas is the one who were there last season, and what separated us was we had one more draw. We both liked to draw last season. If we didn't concede that Almada goal, we would have been tied for points. They would have won on goal difference. But even then, I think we'd be tied on goal difference because they have -3, we had -4. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, we did our best.
No, they have +4.
We did our Brighton impression last season. When I think of Brighton, I just think of them randomly drawing 1-1 against anybody in the Premier League. So the Quakes definitely had a few too many draws for my taste. And I think that I view this game against FC Dallas. Right now, FC Dallas is a bit ahead of San Jose Earthquakes in terms of who I expect to compete in the Western Conference. This is going to be a good measuring stick. In a road environment in MLS, you don't expect much. You want to still perform well, and you need to pick up points where you can on the road. And a good performance could result in that, but it's going to be a very difficult game. And within that last segment, we kind of answered the last 2 questions there for this final one. Fill in the blank, Buzz. Dallas will win this game against San Jose Earthquakes if
they're able to break down St. Louis's what I expect to be a relatively low block. My expectation is that San Jose will be mid to low block and try and counter with a Bobasi or try and get forward and rapid transition. And if Dallas can break down that block and get a goal or 2, they should be able to win. I do want to say, however, that I think Luchi is a very good coach. Mm-hmm. I think he's learned lessons from his time in Dallas. And I don't know enough about your roster, but if the pieces that I've looked at on paper, if those pieces pay off, I do expect San Jose to be in that playoff conversation. Yeah. They were just outside of it last year. And if you make a step or 2, you should be right in there in that playoff conversation. So I think that your team is going to be improved. I'm expecting it to be improved. Yeah. But I still expect that most teams that come to Dallas play a mid to low block because of Dallas' struggles against it and because, generally speaking, it's hotter than the sun here. Yeah. So only 3 or 4 clubs will try to come in here and actually play. LAFC, Seattle, and St. Louis really are pretty much it. So that'll be the expectations. Can you break down that block?
Right. And since you mentioned the heat, I know it's still winter, but just out of curiosity, how hot is it there for you right now, Buzz?
Well, right now it's about 50-something, but it's going to be 80 on Wednesday.
Oh, there you go. That's Texas for you.
I don't know how hot it'll be. It'll be lovely. We'll consider it a nice winter day this weekend. But like last Saturday, it was like 35. So you never know what you're going to get this time of year in Dallas. But a long time ago, there was this article once that said Dallas has the hottest average game day home temperature on the planet because of the average temperature here is so high. So people have this expectation it's going to be really hot. So you guys are getting the beautiful time of year here. It's going to be gorgeous, probably, as long as it's not raining. But
we got some rain this weekend, which for Abram and I means we got to be extra careful driving because one drop of rain for California and people forget what they learned in driver's ed.
Yeah.
Ivan, I drive for work. I drive six plus hours a day. That is so true. I hate that stereotype so much because it applies very much so.
Yeah, if we get a snowflake or a tiny bit of like freezing rain, the whole city shuts down. It's like, or even if it's just cold, we shut the schools closed for cold. It's crazy.
Yeah, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, look out.
Yeah.
All right, Abram, fill in the blank. San Jose Earthquakes get a result in this game against FC Dallas if what happens?
Um, if our midfield lineup can click, there's a lot of doubt about who's going to be in that three. We know it's going to be three. I think it would be strange to pull out a 4-4-2 right now, although it wouldn't be unheard of. I think that it makes sense to put Grezzo and Yule out there as a two, and then maybe put Judd in for a start. That's not a terrible strategy, but I think that we're going to see a 4-3-3 shoehorned in there. But if those three can click together and break past Dallas's press for when we get the ball after sitting back for so long, then we can make something happen. Although I will say there's a lot of people who really dislike Luchi's tendency to try and go for a tie or sit back in any capacity. Even when we're winning like one goal up, people still get upset at that philosophy, which I don't. I like points. I'm cool with it. But if Buzz's prediction of us sitting back is true, there's going to be a lot of upset Quakes fans.
Luchi realized when he was in Dallas that you had to grind on the road. And so he often that was one of my complaints about him, is that he would too aggressively alter and come a grind sort of mentality when he would go on the road. There were teams where I felt like, oh, that team's terrible. You could try and play against them. So it's not an unrealistic idea, though, that you do need, like, win percentage in MLS is one of the toughest in the world. It's like 75% home advantage. But at the same time, you're coming to Dallas potentially without Jesus Ferreira. Pettermoose is not here yet. Paxton Pomacall's banged up. Alan Velasco's out for another 3 or 4 months. Giovanni Jesus is hurt. So, like, this is your best shot of the year probably to get at this team that's 5 DP level players that aren't going to play. Mm-hmm. So this is about as good a chance as you're going to get to come in here and play. The weather's going to be nice. Luchi knows this team. Dallas has got a new tactical formation. They got new pieces in different spots. So, like, if you're going to come in and play, this is the game to do it. So you'll have to find out if Luchi has altered that defensive grind mentality on the road that he showed here and last year in San Jose.
Can I change my answer?
Yeah.
To if Luchi does well, if Luchi mans up and goes for it, that's going to be the determining factor.
Yeah, could be.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today, as always, Abram, and thanks again for coming, Buzz. Where can people find your great work on covering FC Dallas?
Thirddegree.net is the website, and then we're on social medias and everywhere as the name Third Degree. It's spelled with 3, the number 3, 3RD, DEGREE.net. But if you just Google FC Dallas and Third Degree of any version, you'll find us. It's Third Degree, the podcast. All the socials are Third Degree. So we're easy to find. And if you guys run into Luchi, tell him I said hello, will you?
Absolutely. Will do. Abram, what you got cooking up for us, and where can people follow you?
I have a few articles in the works. It's been really hard because I have like a bunch of Quakes 2 players, that I have to talk about. And there's just so much, going on in that world that is so hard to focus on one article, get it done. But we're still working on them. They're all about 25% done. But I'm going to try and get one released by this weekend. To follow me, you can go on Twitter at elbombastic. And also make sure to check out the Tectonic Takes Discord if you have the chance. And like me, felt like there's not enough places to have a great community with other Quakes fans. That is probably the best place I've found in all the internet to commune with other Quakes fans.
Right, and thanks again for all your hard work on the Quakes 2 coverage, especially excavating these uncut gems so that way when they show up on the Quakes roster, they're not unknown for people that just follow the Quakes. But if you haven't checked in the Quakes 2 or your respective MLS club's next pro side, absolutely do so, because they're going to be integral for the long-term success of your MLS club. For me, my big project right now is just like last year. I'm re-updating my MLS database for today. It's just a Google document where I update every MLS club's roster after each lineup. And it's very easy to read and follow with players' nationalities, their birth dates, so that way you can get to know where every MLS's roster construction is at. And if you're interested in that, all you have to do is ask for me on Twitter at Ivan Ornelas2 or at Tectonic Takes on Twitter, and I'll gladly point you toward that direction. FC Dallas versus San Jose Earthquakes. That'll be our first matchup of the season. 5:30 p.m. kickoff Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Central. As always, have a great day.